evening. Good evening. It's good to have you here tonight. I would like to just start by welcoming everyone that's here, also those from the city and from Republic Services. And just by a show of hands, who's here for the first time? Well, welcome. It's good to have you here. Hey, Matt, it's good to have you here too. All right. Our minutes are online, and so if you just go through from last month. Last month we had Ethan Conrad here. I think we had about 80 people. It was quite the turnout, and to hear him do his presentation. I know tomorrow night he's going to be over at one of the other neighborhood associations or areas to do the presentation there. So he's trying to make sure that the city wants to make sure that he expresses his desires and his concept to as many people as he possibly can before he appears before the city council. Okay, the treasury report, it's on our minutes too, and we'll move on from there. We've got a few things coming up. First, Kat. Kat is our representative. She goes over to Woodside on a monthly basis, and so we can keep in touch with them to help them out as much as possible.
Woodside. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Woodside PTO has set up a dine and donate at the California Fishing Grill on Sunrise and Madison on March 6th from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. So if you have a hankering, going over there, get something to eat, that'll help boost up the Woodside PTO funds. Also, when they come back, they're on break this week. When they come back, they'll be having a fundraiser. It's going to be C's Candy. I'm looking forward to that. So they have it planned for delivery April 8th, so it will arrive in time for Easter if you had something you wanted to order or you were going to purchase from C's. Purchasing from them helps them get a portion of the proceeds. That's about it. If you have anything else you'd like to know, I did put this on the post in the back.
Oh, thank you.
Additionally, just so you know, the Unified School District, San Juan Unified School District is reviewing a new cell phone policy because they feel that distractions will be reduced.
Good.
The date for the fish grill?
March 6th.
Okay, so a certain amount of that will go towards.
Yes, some of the proceeds goes to Woodside PTO.
Okay.
Oh, great.
All right, and I'll tell you, Fish Grill is one of our favorite places. I think it's a good deal and it's good food. Okay, I'd like to turn the time over to our Lieutenant Herman at this time to give us a report, and he'll also be asking for questions.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, everybody. I don't like to be tethered. As Bill mentioned, I'm Lieutenant Wes Herman. I've been with the Citrus Heights Police Department for about 16 years. I oversee our investigation services unit. So I have two detective teams, our general investigations team and our impact team, which has recently undergone some changes, but impact primarily does kind of special investigations, undercover work, narcotics, drugs, gangs. We also used to do the quality of life stuff, which kind of centered around our chronic nuisance offenders. So blight, homelessness, making sure those folks have access to resources, and then holding every member of our community, whether they're housed or unhoused, accountable so that they're following local laws, state laws in our community. So we did recently, I think I mentioned last time, whether, I don't know if you were all here or not, but last time we did recently just carve out that portion of our responsibility. We have a POP team now, which is our problem-oriented policing. We had that in years past, and due to some budget constraints, we kind of shrunk that into one unit. But given the amount of focus that we're spending on that today and the commitment from our council to continue trying to enhance that quality of life, we did make that a separate unit again. And so we have now a problem-oriented policing sergeant.
What is that unit? What did they do?
Problem-oriented policing, so they're basically in charge of all quality of life situations. It could be neighbor disputes, it could be so mental illness. We have a partnership with Sacramento County for a clinician to ride with one of our patrol officers. So we try to deal with that on the front end. But there could be something related to mental health or other things going on with maybe a neighbor. And if there's a neighbor dispute, POP will often get involved in that. And then they're also dealing with the chronic nuisance offenders, which is to say folks who are repeatedly violating the same crimes over and over and over again, which oftentimes are related to camping, unlawful storage of personal property in the public right-of-way, which impacts our businesses and people using our sidewalks and other portions of our right-of-way in the community. So we have split that back out. Impact is now refocusing its efforts on drug houses, undercover blitz operations in the retail business corridor.
Good.
So we work with outside agencies in addition, like the CHP. They have a property crimes team. We'll work in conjunction with them, and we'll go out and we'll basically identify target areas, target businesses, certain times of days and days of the week that are more prevalent for theft. And what we're looking to do is to capture people who are repeat offending. I'm sure all of you are aware Prop 36 recently passed, which was to bring back some accountability measures to repeat offenders. We are just in the early stages of that. That went into effect mid-December. We have had a number of Prop 36 arrests, and there's kind of two avenues of Prop 36. There's the habitual drug use offenders, and the goal there is to try to get them to services for rehabilitation. That was something that was in existence years ago, and it kind of went away under Prop 37. So they're trying to reinstitute that, and then on the retail theft side, what they're really trying to do is shut down these blatant thefts. You've probably all seen them online. You may have even seen them in person. Our own city manager and his son witnessed one of those last year as they were walking out of our Macy's, I think, and they had somebody run past them who was stealing, and loss prevention's in hot pursuit. A lot of times those folks get out of there before we get there. There's a number of different things that PD is doing to combat that. I talked about these blitz operations. We also are working on a number of different technology initiatives, which we receive state grant funding for under the BSCC grant. We got about $2.75 million over 3 years to spend in our community, which has been great. We've been working with our city partners, Leslie in particular, and Matthew in engineering, working on license plate reader cameras in the community and other ways that we can try to help identify, detect, and prevent crime before it happens. But if we don't get there before it happens, then we have ways to try to solve it on the back end. So I'll just pause there. I don't want to be too long-winded. I know Leslie's got a full program tonight. I do want to open up to questions. Bill and I always go back and forth. He tells me to come present about something. I say, I don't know what's interesting to everybody. He says, just shoot from the hip. And then I like to open it up to see what you guys want to hear about. Sir?
Did you guys ever find the truck or whatever that went through the JCPenney store, went in and broke the window and door and came back out?
Yeah, we did. So I briefly reported on that last time, but just for those who weren't here, about $350,000 is the newest estimate in damage to JCPenney's. Well over $100,000 in jewelry that was stolen.
Yep.
That offender was out on bail on a burglary that was ours from JCPenney's. So he did the same thing a couple months earlier. He went and stole that vehicle up in Roseville from the auto mall, drove it around a little bit, and then went and did his deed here on a Sunday morning. Drove it through actually in one entry and out a different exit. Yep. Drove around through the store. Luckily, nobody was hurt. But our detective team has been working that case. We did take him into custody on a Sacramento County warrant where he was wanted for another burglary, different than these two I'm talking about. And he was taken to jail by our team for that burglary. We are waiting on one more piece of evidence to come back from our Sacramento County Crime Lab to definitively tie him to ours, although we know it was him.
Yeah.
And then once our case is solid, we'll be presenting that to our DA for charges.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you say 3 years to spend that 2.7 million or pocket?
That's correct. It's $2.75 million over 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And we've done a number of different things. I mentioned technology. We have some part-time retail theft detective. We have a real-time information center operator, so we call it the RTIC. A lot of cities are standing these up. We did this one in conjunction with Elk Grove PD, and it was kind of a collaborative approach. They had the physical plant. They had a lot of money and infrastructure invested in their facility already. We had a body resource, and they needed more resources from human staffing to try to staff their center more hours, and we needed all the physical assets. So ITs, I call them the rich uncle, down in the south part of the county.
Yep.
But it's a great partnership that we have with them, and our RTIC operator basically watches traffic cameras, license plate readers, which are still images. We have a number of different camera assets throughout the city, and even if you own a business and you have a CCTV camera, your own surveillance system,
Yeah.
we can ingest that image. If you wanted to give us access to maybe, you know, your cash register or the front of your store, whatever you wanted, you can tell us which camera assets you want us to view, and then you pay a nominal fee to a tech vendor. They basically put a device on your CCTV system, and it allows us to watch those cameras if you want us to help monitor that stuff. So it's not required, but it's like $300 a year. It's relatively inexpensive, and we can ingest hundreds of cameras into that system.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Can you enlighten us on, or update us on what's going on as far as progress at the corner of Wintergreen and Old Auburn with all the cars on that piece of property?
Well,
It's been a couple of years now.
yeah, so actually Mr. Pierce, I know, is going to speak to that a little bit tonight at some point in the program. But what you're talking about is a residence there on Old Auburn.
Yeah.
There's a number of different vehicles behind the gate. That has been obviously an ongoing situation there for a while. We're aware of that. Our code enforcement team is working that case. I think, I don't want to steal Mr. Pierce's thunder. I don't know where you went. There you are. Okay. The answer is they're in the process of doing an abatement on the property. It does take quite a while. There's a definite balance between, you know, not violating someone's individual rights in their own home and also being in compliance with what our city county codes are. So we're balancing that. We are working on it right now with code enforcement. I would expect us to see some progress on that in the coming months. There's a number of different things that could go all the way to receivership, but it doesn't have to go there either. It just kind of depends. And receivership, obviously, for those unaware, I mean, that's when the city basically comes along and says, you've gone so far, you're not complying, and at this point, we need a public appointed receiver to be able to facilitate this property because you're not coming into compliance. So that's way, way down the road, and most of them don't get to that. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Jeannie, am I hitting the mark? Is there anything I'm missing here? All right. Oh, there's my chime. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Good job.
I think I'm gonna change up a little bit, Leslie. I'm gonna let Republic go first,
Okay.
okay? Is that all right? You ready? Wait a minute. Where did Mary go?
She's over there.
Oh, you're just gonna hide out over there, okay.
Divide and conquer.
All right.
Thank you. Hi everyone, we won't take too much of your time tonight. I'm Megan, I'm with Republic Services. I'm your sustainability advisor here in Citrus Heights. This is Annah Rulon, she is our municipal manager. Today we're just here to talk to you about your neighborhood cleanup program. The same program that you guys have had for the very long time. 3 times a year. The only change that has been coming up is we were told by a lot of residents that having your trash out all week long was creating a lot of issues. Creating blight, was blocking your parking, and bringing a lot of scavengers in. So we listened to that and we responded. So going forward, when you get your guide, it will tell you a week in advance when the trash is to go out, but you're not going to put it out until 48 hours in advance. So what that means is if your day is on a Wednesday, you can put it out Monday at 6 a.m. So that way there's only a two-day window where the trash is actually going to be out on the street. If that's an issue for you, if you need some help, please contact us. We are working on ways to help individuals that maybe need more support in that. But otherwise, everything else will stay the same. And we have these guides here in the back on the back of the guide, you can put the month that corresponds with your neighborhood, so you have a general idea of when to expect our notices and all these same information, because nothing else has changed about what to do with your trash. Any questions?
So, you call them scavengers, okay. How much do they think that they are costing Republic in recycling fees?
That's a good question. We haven't really looked into that. And just to clarify, this is specifically about the neighborhood cleanup program with the stuff not in a container, the stuff that's out of the curb. So nothing with the carts and what time they go out is changing. But no, we haven't really looked into that. It seems like the scavenging in the bulky piles affects you guys more than it affects us. I think it's more of a toll for you if they're making a bigger mess moving stuff around, or if they're adding stuff to your pile and making it look larger than it was when you put it out. By the time we get there, we just do our best to clean it up. So it honestly affects you probably more than us, but yeah, we haven't looked into the loss and recycling funds.
Do you sort through it for recycle purposes or not?
We do not, but it does get sorted. So all the material that's picked up in the bulky pile goes to one of the certified construction demolition facilities in Sacramento County. And at those facilities, they are required to sort it. So we do not landfill the material picked up in the bulky piles.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. We landfill material that we pick up that's illegally dumped, but not your bulkies.
I would just like to give a kudos to the individuals that are on the crew that come to pick up the bulk stuff. They do a really good job at cleaning up the street.
Thank
So
you.
they do.
Yeah, we will let them know.
Pass that
Yeah.
along.
It's a small crew.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we will definitely
Good,
let them know.
because they do pretty good at picking up, loose stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have any numbers on the food waste program? Are people putting their food waste in their green waste in it? Was it a good number or?
So we do have numbers on that, and if you guys want us to come back later in the year with like a more comprehensive how that program's going, I'm happy to do that. We are not getting a lot of participation, unfortunately. Am I out of time?
No.
Okay. We've actually seen like a slight drop in participation, which is a huge bummer, and I think it's probably because there was so much outreach in Sacramento and in California when it went into effect in 2022, and I think people maybe either like forgot or they're not getting rewarded or they're not getting penalized, so I don't know.
So
But-
it's not enforced then, because it is a California state law, is it not?
It is, and it is enforced. We have one employee who goes out and they look through bins and they leave behind tags if you are or you aren't doing it correctly. But you know, if we had dozens of people going out, that would just cost everyone more money. So it's kind of this fine balance that we're trying to find.
I understand that.
But we do need to do more outreach about it because it is super bummer when you go in a neighborhood and nobody has any food waste.
And it's super easy to do. I
It
don't
is.
get it.
I love this.
You
We did
can
not plant
decrease
her.
the
This is
methane.
genuine.
Decrease the methane levels in the landfill
Yes.
by dumping your coffee grounds in a biodegradable bag that sits on your countertop or wherever you
Yeah.
want to keep it.
Or in your freezer till you're ready to
And
put it
just
out.
Put it in your green waste when the bag's full. Amazon has biodegradable bags, cheap.
They do. I get mine from
Yeah,
Amazon.
thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Continue to spread the good word.
Do you want to come for our next meeting?
Yeah, right.
I'll get involved.
We'll come over here in a second.
How do you,
Sorry.
how do you enforce 2 days out early? Do you send one, I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will have somebody out there checking to see if they're out illegally. So when we put out the guides, we're still gonna give you the whole week to get your stuff together, right? So you can start piling up in your yard or in your garage, whatever. So we'll have somebody coming by knowing that these are the neighborhoods that have been given a guide early and make sure that there's nobody with a pile out. And so if they do have a pile out, we're gonna be leaving tags on them as well, letting them know this pile's not supposed to be out at this time.
and is the fine added to their bill? or-
Yep. So right now we're in an educational period. For the first 4 months, we're not finding anyone. If we see a pile, we're leaving an educational tag, and if the person's home, we're having that conversation with them. After the 4-month grace period started at the beginning of the year. So in a couple months here, we will be going into the phase where we are penalizing people. It's like $166. So you'll notice it. It will be on your bill, but there will absolutely be a notice left on your door or a cart if there's a cart out, most likely on your door. If you get a fine and you did not get something on your door, definitely call us so we can make sure it was the right home that got the fine and educate you on what was going on.
So somebody actually goes around and puts those?
Yep.
Wow.
So a question about the pile size. If you're the lucky victim of somebody leaving this stuff at your
Yes.
house, what's the recourse?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and we get that one a lot. And nothing has changed in regards to that. It has always been the property owner's responsibility, and that goes for the carts too. Like if somebody, a neighbor or a scavenger comes and does something with the carts, all of that burden is going to fall on the property owner. So we don't have a really good solve for that, but definitely if you have something going on, please call us because we work really closely with the city and code enforcement, and we want to try to get to the bottom of that instead of just throwing fines at you and shrugging our shoulders.
I got a warning, but I didn't get fined.
For the pile being too big?
Yeah, but it wasn't my stuff.
Okay.
Half of it was mine.
If you'd like, my business cards are in the back.
It's only happened once.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're welcome to take my business card and we can talk about your situation personally via email, or you can give me a call if you'd like.
I thought I saw hands over there.
Well, yeah, regarding the size of the pile, yeah, sometimes ours is large, but I share it with my neighbor, because we do together, so how do I tell you guys that's two people, not one pile?
So you get 10 cubic yards, which is a whole lot. So if you and your neighbor combined have more than 10 cubic yards, I would just make sure you separate them between your two homes, because the whole neighborhood's getting it at the same time. So between the two of you, that's 20 cubic yards. But if you want to let your neighbor add stuff to yours and you're not going to go over the 10 cubic yards and you're okay with that, as long as you guys are both okay with it, then it's all good.
Kind of know that, or I tell you that they're combined?
No, it's pre-scheduled. So we're just going to sweep through that neighborhood and we're going to pick up what's out. And we're only going to note something in the system if the pile was too big.
Yeah.
Did you have something else?
Yeah, we had somebody going through our trash as an inspector.
Oh,
I thought maybe you were doing that just because we had this meeting.
Oh, no. No, we have a part-time employee who that is his job.
Yeah.
He looks in the trash as well, and he's looking in there to make sure there are not recyclables or food or even hazardous items, batteries, stuff like that.
Back to compost.
Mm-hmm.
That program is very dear to my heart, and I've talked to some of my neighbors, and the thing was, we don't have enough compostable bags to keep the house clean, considering that they need to be changed every day. And I wanted to let everybody know that most grocery stores now have compostable bags, so when you buy your grocery, your produce, you get those bags and then you use them for your compost. It's been very, very helpful. So I'm glad people don't know that.
Absolutely. It is also very close to my heart, so much that it's now tattooed on me. So, reduce, reuse, recycle, rot, that's the compost right there.
So it's recyclable.
Any other questions?
All right, well, thank you so much. As a reminder, my business cards and the guides are in the back, so if you guys want to grab them on your way out. And if you do think of a question later, please feel free to reach out.
All right, and we're going to head out, so take that step if you have more questions.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Good job.
So tonight, our guest presenter is Leslie Blomquist, Blomquist from the city. She's our city chief engineer. And so I think she's going to be probably quite a bit of information tonight, right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. So I'm Leslie Blomquist, city engineer. I manage the engineering division of the General Services Department. So we do all of your capital projects, your traffic signal operations and maintenance, street lights, and plus more. But those are the main items that we'll be discussing tonight. And I'm joined tonight with Matthew Ma, our engineering technician. I'm actually going to turn over the first part of the beginning over to Matthew.
Okay. So we have a couple presentations here today. The first part we're going to go over is the private residential lighting program. we've been working on for the better part of the last year. You might have heard of this program at our REACH meetings at City Council, presented back in October. And this is the background.
So our private lighting program was part of the City Council strategic goals from last year. They were set back in March of 2024. The reason why this is a strategic goal is because a lot of our neighborhoods, especially those that were built prior to city incorporation, don't have street lights. And unfortunately, the city's street lighting program is underfunded. And so there is no funding to install new street lights in already developed neighborhoods. When we have new neighborhoods going in, like the new Mitchell Village development over by the Sunrise and Greenback intersection, we do work with them and make sure that they have new street lights, but unfortunately there is no mechanism or funding to install them in already developed neighborhoods. So what City Council asked us to do was look at potential private residential lighting programs where the city and the property owners can kind of partner together to improve the lighting in these already developed areas, or sometimes it's just certain streets in neighborhoods that don't have street lights. So we have put together some different options, which Matthew is going to go through, and yeah, I think we can, yeah.
So just overall, just our current lighting challenges, as Leslie went over, most of it lack existing street lighting, and traditional options are really expensive, up to $20,000 per light to install, so we want to find alternative ways to kind of address this issue. So what we came up with is a resident-driven lighting program that provides these privately owned lights, and we're trying to kind of come up with a menu of different type of options that different neighborhoods could pick and choose which type they would like, and kind of have a pre-selected option that could get easily installed and address the issues in that particular neighborhood. And also connects residents with contractors, pre-qualified contractors, to basically streamline the process, make it as easy as possible for everyone to procure these. So we looked into two main different type of options we separated it into. So there's solar options for accessory lighting and wired options. Wired options are typical ones we're used to. These are usually connected to a residential meter, so it has an inherent cost, but typically we're only looking at LED options, so as with more modern technology, it's more energy efficient.
Yeah.
The second option, as we seen, and these are really amazing, is that the solar powered options, you can actually see a fully functional solar powered streetlight at Oak and Canelo Hills that we actually just installed this past week. These are ideal for areas with existing infrastructure where we don't have conduit, where we don't have that underground utilities, where we maybe can't underground utilities or can't underground that conduit, and typically they don't have any additional costs besides the initial, as they're self-sufficient for the most part. So we broke it down into basically option 1A, 1B, and 1C. 2A, or just 2. Our first option 1A is like a solar yard lamppost. That's the option you kind of see in the corner over there. It's not lit up right now. Apparently I did not get enough sun on it this past weekend, so yeah. But that's one of the drawbacks, but typically it can be powered anywhere. Very low light pollution, but like you can put it up anywhere and they don't require any additional conduit or a wiring to put up. No additional permitting. The only thing is weather limitations. Like obviously if it's very cloudy, we're limited by that. And it's just like they don't have that much of a runtime compared to your traditional options. So not as reliable, but very flexible. Our second is our more traditional wired yard lampposts. These you can see, typically these are the ones that like you stick in your front yard and they're wired to the house. They typically have very low pollution, same benefits, a lot brighter, and they can be constantly powered. And they also have their most reliable, have the longest lifespan, and they, they still have electrical costs, and in some cases you may need permitting, especially when you're pulling the conduit and the wiring, to the frontage. And the third option, I have a sample. It's kind of on the chair over there, but it's more of a building mounted option. These are typical ones you could actually just procure from any home improvement store. But these are more targeted options to kind of have that lighting right in front of your house. Right. You could have like a smart bulb in them to control when they come on and off, to help provide a sense of security for the neighborhood. They do take up some electrical costs, obviously, and some runtime, but they are very limited. They don't have that proximity to the sidewalk. So we kind of just broke down the different type of options. These are the kind of main 3 menu options we're looking at. We'll have a more detailed menu once we kind of gauge actual interest into this program. You can kind of see the prospective costs and comparisons of these options. The cheapest option is typically just the building mounted ones you can get at the store, but like I said, they're limited to the frontage, whereas if you want that nice post in front of the house to provide that security, to provide that lighting in like the more right away in the sidewalks, it costs anywhere from $200 to $900 for total install with everything included. And obviously they last a little longer. So how we envision this process, the installation and process would go, is that the residents would pick a lighting option from the city's pre-approved list. These options would be either voted on or picked by the individual neighborhood association. The resident would then hire a contractor from our list provided by the city that we have checked, that are pre-qualified to perform this work. And then they would perform it, and then the resident is 100% has to maintain the ownership and overall just maintenance of the light. It's privately owned, not publicly owned, but still provides benefit to the entire neighborhood. So our next steps on this right now is we're trying to gauge actual interest on specific streets that lack city-owned streetlights currently. We have some maps for you to see that I will put out after, so you can kind of see where your neighborhood is and see if it kind of falls in this area where we don't have these streetlights. And we mainly kind of want the community's input. We want to see what was the community's main concerns regarding this, what solution interests the community the most, and then are there any other obstacles that we should consider as we kind of progress and build out this program. And then you also always, if you see any light out, any thing regarding electricals or streetlights, you can always contact the city at our main line, our general service department, or send an email to servicerequest@gsd@citrusheights.net. And then I have a QR code and kind of forms. If you were interested in this program, you could fill out that form and take a survey, and then be added to an email list to get updates as we keep progressing on this.
So that's our first item for tonight. Are there any questions on our private lighting? Bill?
I'd just like to see a show of hands of who is attending tonight who lives on a dark street with no lights. Nice. Okay.
Let's see. And we also
Go
have
right
a
out,
dash.
go right out at the driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally dark.
So unfortunately, this projection is a little bit far back, but this is the city streetlight network. So we have mapped every single streetlight in the city, and I have it overlaid here on Google Earth. I'm going to zoom in to this neighborhood here. So again, I know it's a little hard to see with it being so far back, but all the blue dots are existing streetlights, and you can't see them at all up there. But we did print these out as well, as Matthew said, and they're here somewhere in the back, I think, if you want to see your street. But for most of the CHASEN area is lit. There aren't a lot of streets in neighborhoods 7, 8, and 9 that do not have streetlights. There is this section over here, off of Glentree, the part of Glentree and all the side streets off of Glentree, that part is not lit. And then there's a few other kind of like pocket areas, but for the most part, your neighborhoods are pretty well lit. So 7, 8, and 9 will have some sections that you might be interested in this, but you guys are one of the lucky neighborhoods that have streetlights.
I have a good friend that works for SMUD. Now, have they turned over the responsibility of streetlights that exist in the city to the city itself? Like 5 years ago?
No, there's kind of a mismatch of ownership of streetlights in Citrus Heights. Majority of them, I want to say about 95% are city owned and maintained. About the remaining, maybe 4% are SMUD owned and maintained. And there are full neighborhoods where the city does not maintain the streetlights, and this would be behind Rush Park or over off of Carriage. Those neighborhoods are all owned and maintained by SMUD. And then we have random lights where you'll see them on the wooden utility poles. Those ones are owned and maintained by SMUD as well. And those are pretty sporadic around the neighborhood. We have a few on Oak, a few on Wachtel that are on the wood utility poles, and those ones are owned and maintained by SMUD. The good thing about the city-owned and maintained lights is we get out there and we repair them within 10 days. SMUD takes a little bit longer. So, that's the good thing about having about 95% of our inventory as city-maintained.
Is SMUD still an option?
SMUD, whenever we have the opportunity and we have existing wooden utility poles on the street that is not lit, we have already asked the question to SMUD, can we put a light here? And like on Oak, I know it has come up in the past that we want streetlights on Oak Avenue. Unfortunately, all of those utility poles there already have too much SMUD equipment, will not allow us to put a street light for the roadway. So we've asked that question. So Matthew alluded to it earlier, we are looking at other opportunities besides the private lighting program on how we can just bring streetlights, especially to our larger collectors and arterial roads, at maybe a smaller ticket price so that we can get more in. And so we have a small pilot program there, and we just put up Oak and Canelo Hills right there by the school crosswalk across Oak. We just turned on a solar powered streetlight there last week. I drove by it on the way here. It looks just like a regular streetlight. You would not even know that it's solar powered. So if you drive down Oak Avenue, you'll see a new light there that has no conduit, no electrical costs. You'll see a solar panel on top of it during the day. It's a little bit thick because it has batteries in there to power it at night. Unfortunately, it's still really expensive. That light was $16,000. That's without all the underground infrastructure. Cheaper than $20,000, but it's still $16,000 a light. So it's not going to be a viable option to put in an entire neighborhood, but it is something that we're looking at, and we're trying to find ways that we can bring more lights to our roadways.
So putting them on the utility pole down our street right here is not an option?
It depends. So if it's a residential street, we may not have asked the question yet. We've asked it for all the larger collectors and arterials. So if you have a specific street that you'd like us, Wonder
and Hanson.
We can add Wonder and Hanson to our list. I see Matthew writing it right down right now, and we'll look at that.
I think there is one by the park. I don't think it's ever turned on.
There is one down by the entrance to the park that is SMUD on this one.
Was one in front of our house, but the house was sold about a year and a half ago. And then when the new lady came in, somebody came from SMUD and took it out.
Oh.
And she asked me if we did it. I said no. So I don't know why they took it out.
What street is this?
London.
Okay.
Right next to me, but I believe maybe the first owner that it was there when we first, my husband bought the house, he had put the light up because he was working, I don't know if he was working for Smart or he was working for the telephone company, and he wanted a light for his wife and young kids because he was working nights, and he put it up and then he paid, and the neighbor that he was bought it, the one before the last girl, she had the neighbors paying $25 a year to, 2, 3 neighbors, 4 neighbors, I don't remember how many, but my husband was paying for it.
Yeah, SMUD does have
But
another.
they took it out, so I don't know who took it out.
SMUD does have another option for private lighting. So when we're looking at lighting roadways, we have to have the lights on the roadway side of the pole. There is an option if you are interested and you have a pole in front of your house, you can contact SMUD if there's room on the private side of that pole.
Yes,
they can
it
put,
was on the inside
yeah,
of
and
the
it's a smaller light. They call that a night light. They'll install that and then they bill the property owner, I think it's like $12 a month for that.
Around that time, I had heard it was $100 a year.
It's about correct, yeah. It's gone up a little bit, so I think they're at $11.85 a month now for those private night lights. But it has to, the circumstances have to all align. You have to have the pole, you have to have the room, and then SMUD can install that and bill you directly. Yeah.
So if you're mounting, I should say, does code allow you to mount a spotlight on your garage if it shines across the street?
That is a great question. I do not know the answer to that, but that is something that we can ask.
I mean, what I'm saying is that, does the lights have to project down so far where they're not,
I would assume that as a neighbor issue that you probably don't want it shining into your neighbor's homes, but what are the requirements for that? I'm not sure, and so we'd have to check with code enforcement and see if there is any code requirements on that. All right, no more questions on streetlights? All right.
Thank you.
I was also asked to kind of touch on our city resurfacing plans, and unfortunately I brought that same Google Earth map that highlights all the streets that are supposed to get resurfaced, so I don't know if you'll be able to see it, I'll pull it up in a second, but we also have it printed up here for you to see afterwards on Matthew's boards. But the city has adopted a 3-year resurfacing plan.
Oh, good.
We're currently working on the 2025 year. I will say there are no streets in the CHASEN neighborhood that are going to be resurfaced in 2025, but there are a whole bunch that are going to get resurfaced in 2026. So let me see if this works. So those blue lines are all streets that are going to get resurfaced in the next 3 years. I can toggle off years, so I'm turning off 2025. So the only one that turned off, Oak Avenue, is scheduled to get resurfaced this year. And that is for the whole way, from Wachtell to Sunrise.
That's the worst.
So that is currently in the plans, and that is the one street in this neighborhood that is on the 2025 list. I'm gonna turn off 2027 now. So all of these streets that are left on are gonna get resurfaced next year in 2026. That's a large part of the neighborhood, north of Oak Avenue. And then in 2027, there's a section south of Oak Avenue, a neighborhood that's gonna get resurfaced. So this is our current 3-year plan. This was adopted by City Council last year, and we're currently working on implementation of this. I know there's been a lot of utility work in the neighborhood over the last few years, so we really wanted to make sure that we are looking at this holistically. We're going neighborhood by neighborhood because unfortunately not just this neighborhood had a lot of utility work, so we're trying to concentrate our efforts in certain parts of the city each year so that we're not sending our contractor all over and then coming back and doing it all over again. So we're kind of picking different areas and doing that each year to consolidate the impacts that we're having to the neighborhoods. We only come once we do the resurfacing and then we won't be back, hopefully, for a while, versus coming and doing one street this year, one street next year, and being in your neighborhood every year, trying to minimize that impact and also consolidate funds and minimize the amount that we're paying the contractor to mobilize all over the city. If you have specific questions on resurfacing, I'd be happy to answer those. Yeah?
What type of resurfacing is it?
So each street is getting a different resurfacing, and it depends on the condition of that road.
How about Oak?
Oak Avenue is going to get a 3-layer treatment, so it'll be 3 different types of resurfacing that when combined all together provides a nice structural section for that road. It'll fill in all the potholes and it'll last a really long time. Most of the residential streets are getting a type 2 slurry seal, so it's just gonna be kind of like a coat on top of the road to help prolong the existing condition of that road. We're really trying to concentrate and do more preventative maintenance instead of coming back and doing the grind and overlays for the really bad streets where we can't do very many of them. We're trying to get them when they're in okay condition to make them last even longer and hit way more streets. In the past, we've done 10 streets a year. We're gonna start doing 100 plus streets a year starting in 2025.
What's the approximate turnaround time if I call in a pothole on my street? Does the city do that, or?
We do, yes, and so in the winter, it's really challenging because it's cold out. We can't fill a pothole the way we want to fill a pothole. But we will be out within a couple days to evaluate and assess and put in temporary repairs, and then we'll schedule the permanent repairs when the weather allows. Yes, Scott?
Say, instead of calling them in, your best option is the C-Click Fix app. Because you can actually take a picture of it, they see right where it's at, they know how to get there, and they respond immediately via email that says, hey, I saw that, you turned this in, we're taking a look at it. They're pretty quick. C-Click Fix.
C-Click
Or C-Fix Click, one of those.
It is C-Click Fix. It's an app you can download on your phone. Yeah.
You can also report homeless camps there, abandoned shopping carts, and all that stuff.
Dark street lights.
Lights
Yeah.
that are out.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What about streets that are heavy with alligator cracks? With the second phase, will that fill in the crack, or is it gonna look like it's been coated and you still got alligator cracks?
Well, we're definitely not going to be fixing all of the problems that were there. We're trying to prolong that pavement section. We are going to be digging out and repairing the really bad sections, the parts where the trenches have failed. If there's significant alligator crack where we can't slurry seal, we'll be looking at repairs to that before we put the slurry down. Yeah, but it's really going to depend on the street, the condition. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. We're going out to every street. We're looking at the conditions. We're marking out those locations, and then we're going to be hiring a contractor to repair them.
Great. Have you changed your policy? So I'm on one of the lucky streets that PG&E tore up for 4 months. Are you now putting the burden on the contractor to go in and repair the streets as they tear them up? Or is that still going to fall back onto the city? Now the patches are great. But that heavy equipment going up and down that road has destroyed our streets. So it's not what they dug. So many of those other areas is where they had their equipment setting. So is that burden going to be put back onto the contractors as they come in the future?
I will say also it depends on the street. Sorry to keep saying that. But we have a moratorium policy where we don't allow utilities to come in and disturb our roadway. In the past, that has just been, if we've been out there and we've done our roadway resurfacing in the last 3 years, utility, you can't come out. And that works great for some roads, but not for all. Because what happens on some of these lower volume residential, they're still in really good condition after 3 years, but the requirements for the utilities to come in there is gone. And so what we've done over the past few years is change our policy. And instead of saying if the roadway has been resurfaced in the last 3 years, we're saying now if the roadway is in a decent condition, and we have what's called a pavement condition index, and so each roadway has a number on the condition. If it's over 80 out of 100, utilities, it doesn't matter how long ago we resurfaced it, you're gonna have to come and resurface that road yourself, or you have greater requirements once you come and do your improvements. So the answer is yes, we are putting more burden back on the utilities, but it also depends on the condition of that existing road. If the existing road was in really bad shape, We can't require the utility companies to come in and resurface it. We can only ask them to do that on the roadways that are in good condition. Yes, sir.
Do you guys coordinate with the Citrus Heights Water District too, since they're doing a lot of repairs on the pipelines in these next 2 years?
We hold quarterly meetings with all of the utility companies, not just the water district, but the sewer, PG&E, Comcast, any utility company that has facilities on roadway, we meet with them quarterly. We tell them what roadways we're planning to resurface, and we encourage them to go in and do their upgrade projects before we get there. The last thing we want to do is come and spend significant city funds and investment on a roadway just to have PG&E or the water district or somebody need to come and do a repair next year or 2 years. We're really trying to make these roadways last. So we do try to coordinate the best we can. Now emergencies do come up, and so we have to work with the utility companies when that happens, and that's where we have these increased requirements for if they have to damage a road that's in good condition. But yes, the water district is planning to do a project on Greenback. We had initially thought we wanted to resurface a portion of Greenback in 2025, but we understand that the water district needs to get in there and replace their main. So we're letting them do that, and unfortunately that means we can't resurface until 2026, but I think it's better for the community as a whole to allow them to do that before we resurface instead of pushing forward just to resurface in a certain year.
That was this year, replacing their water main.
I think they're planning to do it later this year, and then we'll be resurfacing Greenback, I think now in 2026. The portion between Birdcage and Mariposa. One of the things that you'll see before a roadway gets resurfaced, depending on the treatment, is new curb ramps. So you will see all new curb ramps going in on Oak Avenue here later this year. That is in preparation for us to resurface that road. That is a federal requirement. Anytime we do more than just standard maintenance on a road, we have to upgrade the pedestrian facilities as well. So you'll see that coming later this year as well.
So would that mean that streets like Wonder here that doesn't have sidewalks, is that gonna have to be upgraded somehow if they come in to resurface?
If there are no sidewalks, no, unfortunately. But if there are existing sidewalks that have corners where there is no way for a pedestrian to get up and down, then that's where we would put in the new curb ramps.
Terrific.
If you're curious about specific streets, because unfortunately, I'm sorry about the map. Matthew has them printed out here that you're welcome to come up and look at.
Will you update us again later on the lighting once you figure out what public lighting we're
Yeah, we can come back again and give an update in a couple months. So another item, and the last item that I had prepped for you tonight is the Old Auburn and Fair Oaks intersection and what our current plans are showing. This is just a recap. In 2019, we did make some changes. We changed it to a left turn and a right turn instead of 2 left turns. We added the flashing speed ahead. We put the yellow reflective back plates on around the traffic signal. And then we realigned the lanes on the eastbound approach to allow a better turning movement. We have seen an over 50% reduction in the number of crashes into those planters. So somebody find some wood, knock on it for me please right now, because we don't want one to happen in the next door. Thank you. So that has made a significant impact to the intersection. We've seen a significant reduction in the crashes there. We are still looking at improving Old Auburn Road. The whole corridor, phase 1 is what we're currently working on right now, and that is from Gary Oak to Tiara. So just east of Fair Oaks Boulevard, where the current bike trail ends, that's Gary Oak. And then Tiara is the street just west of Sunrise, where the uncontrolled yellow crosswalk is to Holy Family. Is that Holy Family? So, but specifically for the Old Auburn and Fair Oaks, which is in there, this is our current concept, and we're looking at a protected intersection. So this is to help enhance bicycle pedestrian safety. It'll help reduce turning movement speeds It'll help reduce the number of conflicts between cars and pedestrians and bicyclists. So with lower areas where they conflict, lower chance for people to get hurt. So that's kind of the intent here. Protected intersections have shown to really increase safety for everyone. This also includes a reduction in the travel lanes on Old Auburn between Antelope and Fair Oaks to stop some of that weaving where people are switching lanes, racing to get ahead of each other to get onto Antelope to eventually go to I-80. And also by eliminating that lane, 25% of the people on this road are not Citrus Heights residents, they're not Citrus Heights shoppers, they're just strictly driving through. So by eliminating that lane, reducing that capacity, it'll really encourage cut-through drivers, is what we're calling them, to take an alternate route so that we can reduce the number of cars on the street and kind of take it back for the city of Citrus Heights and the residents and the neighbors. So we'll get rid of the free right turn from eastbound Old Auburn onto southbound Fair Oaks. So right now it's kind of like a yield. You can go even when the light's red.
Yeah.
When the light's red, when the project's done, you're gonna have to stop, make a right on red. That's when we'll be adding the double left turns from westbound on Old Auburn onto southbound Fair Oaks so that we can get more cars out and not block the entrance to Gary Oak. And then we'll be adding medians in between the bike lane and the travel lane to again separate those bicyclists from the cars so that we don't have people conflicting and can increase safety for everybody, reduce travel speeds. Yes.
You know I would. I really like the fact that you're gonna have a stop, you know, because right now that yield, you're making a left turn and they're coming in and then it's a race, especially if they're trying to get over to the school. I mean, I'm surprised there's been no accidents. So I like that fact, but I still, you know, you go over there between 5 and 6 o'clock, yeah, we do have a number of people that are making a left turn lane or making a left turn going west, but eliminating that down to one lane, that backup's gonna be down to my street, down to Coral Oak, because most people are gonna either be going straight or trying to take the Antelope exit off. So they're lining up, and I would say maybe once a week I'll see cars where the left turn lane's gonna back up the rest of the traffic, but usually both left, right lanes, or center lane and over, they're full, because those people are going straight or making the turn. So you have fewer people actually turning on than you do having going straight and forward. I mean, I'm on that road 4 or 5 times a night, you know,
Yeah.
so.
So a couple of things, when we do the project, we're also gonna add signal coordination, so we'll be able to kind of flush the cars down Old Auburn, so it won't be kind of happenstance. If you get a green as you progress, we'll be designing that so that we get cars to go through more efficiently. So that'll help a lot with the queuing at different locations, and we can, once we have the infrastructure in place, we can design it to do and handle that additional throughput. But the main thing here too is reducing the number of cars will really significantly change that. It's not gonna disappear overnight. If we built this tomorrow, we're still gonna have those same people coming through tomorrow, but over time, when they find out that it's gonna take them longer to get through, and they're coming from Roseville to go to 80 or Orangeville to go to 80, they will find alternate routes. So by reducing those cars, reduce the queues, adding coordination, reduce the queues so that we can manage all of that. Yes, sir.
I noticed on Fair Oaks Boulevard by the tennis courts. By the tennis courts, we put in, the city put in a stoplight. Was there a good reason for that? Is there a lot of foot traffic in there?
That's the new trail that was installed, the
Oh,
Arcade
yes.
Cripple Creek Trail, and
That's
that's
where
where
it
it crosses Fair Oaks Boulevard.
Yeah.
So the intent there is when somebody wants to cross the road on the trail, a bicyclist or pedestrian.
Make that safer.
Yeah, so it'll stop the cars so they can cross. Before, people were just running across.
That's correct.
And now, as we have a paved trail, we have more people there so that they can safely cross.
So if you're gonna restrict it down to one lane, you go through the intersection of Old Auburn and Fair Oaks. Now we have the Antelope situation. So are all those people gonna be lined up in one lane? Or is there gonna be a turn lane to go on to Antelope?
There will be a turn lane to go on the Antelope, but it is still quite lengthy.
Okay.
Yes, a couple hundred feet. We do have to contest where there's some driveways over there, some private residences, so we're being cognizant of that. We don't want to block access to their driveways, but there will be a right turn lane to go onto, if you want to call that northbound antelope?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There's, has been a problem, you're very aware of it, with the cut through traffic that jumps off of Sunrise, goes down Hanson, either runs out in Wonder because they don't want to deal with Antelope at Sunrise, or they go all the way down to Glen Creek and then out that way. All I'm seeing here is you're just gonna make more people cut through there. So they miss it. So how are you gonna deal with that problem? Because it won't take them long. You're saying, well, we're gonna stop this here and there. You're gonna congest it up there, they're gonna cut through that residential neighborhood to make it twice as bad as it already is.
of the bicyclist.
That is a good point, and there will be a period of time where people are adjusting to the new roadway, and when it's under construction too, we will be monitoring the adjacent side streets to make sure that we are minimizing impact, and if we have to implement other measures on those local streets, then it is something that we would consider.
But that study's been done with the police department and you guys over and over again.
For the
And
current
solution
conditions,
is,
yeah.
the police department says we'll patrol it. They come out about every couple months with an officer that's somewhere between noon and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is not the traffic, it's not the commute traffic. And this, we don't see anything. But yet, when the time that we wrote the city over it said, get out here during commute time, in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, they wrote 23 tickets for speeders cutting through, not just cutting through, but speeding.
So I can talk to our Sergeant Kassam about that again. I know they have been doing more enforcement lately, and I can ask him for additional enforcement on Hanson. You know, speeding is an issue on residential streets all over the city, all over the region and the nation, to be honest. It's not just here in Citrus Heights. So we are trying to look at different ways. As far as like the engineering side of things, we try to balance the needs. You know, if it's a chronic issue that happens 24 hours a day, then it is something that we would look into implementing engineering countermeasures. Unfortunately, we also have to balance the need of emergency vehicle response. Every time we add a speed hump, that adds about 6 to 10 seconds delay for ambulance to get to a home. So we want to make sure that if we are putting in speed humps or other countermeasures, that we're doing it to solve a greater problem, and it's significantly warranted. Otherwise, we have other countermeasures that we also look at. We kind of tier them up, and our greatest impact is with enforcement. But unfortunately, our officers can't be everywhere all the time, but I can put in that request for certain streets when it comes up, and then we meet monthly and report and talk about different things on when it rises to the engineering level, when it should stay enforcement. We kind of balance those needs with fire as well. I'll add Hanson back, and I'll talk to Sergeant Kassam about Hanson again.
Again, my question was, I'm saying what you're doing here, it's just gonna force those people to cut through that, more people to go through there, because there's already enough people doing it.
Well,
when we have 1,700 cars a day going down Hanson Avenue, there's not that many residents there.
I will say, you know, when we have construction projects, especially large construction projects, engineering and PD, we work hand in hand. We have the construction on Auburn Boulevard going on right now. We have PD out there multiple times a week on the side streets, making sure that we are not impacting the streets on the east side of Auburn for that same concern, cut through traffic. So that is something that we would do when this project is under construction and after, during the implementation and the adjustment phase as well. But it is something that we look at. We don't just come in and improve a road and not look at the impacts to the surrounding areas as well. Auburn Boulevard, you'll see we even have a reduced speed limit installed on Auburn. You know, and PD's out there enforcing that, as well as the impacts on the side street for speeding, cut through, failure to stop. You know, we had a lot of those concerns when we first started construction, and they've gone away. I'm hopeful that that's because people have stopped doing it, because PD's been out there enforcing.
So you're saying that in taking this consideration, this change, you looked at the study from 4 years ago of how many cars were going down Hanson, the count, the city's count.
We look at, like Hanson, when you brought that to my attention, we did look at that as part of our neighborhood traffic safety program. Yeah, and then when we look at Old Auburn, we are looking at the impacts. We do a traffic analysis on the street, and then how it might affect the surrounding areas, yes. And then we have development proposed, like we've had in this neighborhood in the past too. We look at how that's gonna impact the adjacent neighbors and the neighborhood streets also. And depending on what those developers might bring for impact, we require traffic engineering elements to counterbalance that too. You know, when the school was proposed here, I know we had recommendations for the neighborhood for traffic calming as part of that. Unfortunately, that project is.
That wouldn't have helped Hanson, just a speed bump up here on Wonder.
No, we had other speed humps throughout the neighborhood. But the project didn't happen, so those countermeasures didn't
The
happen.
only ones we knew about was the Wonder one.
One on Wonder, one on Hanson, that's it.
Yeah,
the
one
upper
on
part.
each, yeah.
Upper part, the lower part is where they drag between the two stops.
But what I'm trying to say is if we don't look at things just in front of a developer, development, we look holistically and see what is needed for the neighborhood. What are the impacts gonna be on the adjacent streets? Same thing with our capital projects. As far as schedule goes, we are still working on design. I will tell you, we do not have construction funds for this project yet, so we're not gonna be constructing this in the next few years. It's still several years away. Yeah, we do not have construction funds, so still trying, hopeful, but unfortunately no funding for this project right now past the design phase.
Thank you.
How come?
Excuse me?
How come we don't have design for it?
We keep applying for grants. The current estimate for this is over $20 million. So we can't use city funds to construct it. We have to get grant funds for it. And we've been applying to different grants. Unfortunately, we have not been successful for this project.
Keep applying.
Any more questions?
I just want to clarify, was phase one just the paper part?
No, phase one goes from Gary Oak to Tiara.
Okay.
I was just showing this intersection because I know this is the intersection that most people.
But that's what you're talking about, there's no funding for?
The whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, from Gary Oak to Tiara.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. If you want to see the maps, Annah has those here, and we'll set up in the back of the room.
Wow.
Thanks for coming tonight. Just a few things. In the back, I have some flyers. We have a community dinner on March 10th at 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. It's over at the Fountain Square Community Center. And everyone can come, and dinner's going to be provided. They will have raffles there. And it's just a great event. It's a great event just to kind of intermix with people throughout the city. So please attend. It's a lot of fun.
Is there a note back there, Bill?
There should be one flyer you can take a picture of that's posted back there. And then, let's see, I'm just going to give you a heads up. It's coming up, it's not until May. And gee, I don't know if you know, you've heard of the Big Day of Service with Orangevale and Fair Oaks.
I just thought I could.
Okay, this is the first year they're inviting Citrus Heights to participate. So, they're looking at probably maybe 1,200 participants this year. They come in from all over the region. Different people can sponsor projects. CHASEN, I've coordinated with Sunrise Park and Recs. We're going to go right up down here to Madera Park. We're going to tear all of those tables down that are dilapidated. We're going to redo the pavilion and get work done in there. We've done a lot of work over at CBRC, and Jaime with Sunrise said, please come over to Madera. So that'll be a project that we're going to be working on in May. So May 17th, we'll kind of finalize it, but we'll have other work going prior during the week to try to get things so we can get it buttoned up in one day. They'll be meeting over at Bella Vista High School. They're going to be serving breakfast. If you participate, you get a t-shirt. And then from there, they disperse and go off to the different projects throughout Fair Oaks, Orangevale, and Citrus Heights. So it's just a great opportunity to serve the community. I think this year you're going to see more opportunities for not only the physical labor, but the Orangevale Community Center is going to be doing quite a few projects where the women can come in, doing sewing projects and different things for humanitarian purposes. So just kind of put it on your calendar. We'll keep you updated, but it's just a great opportunity, and it's nice to see the city has been invited to attend. And if you have questions on it, I'll be more than happy to answer those for you personally. You can just get hold of me. If you need funding, the funding will be available. If you have projects, I know they're kind of looking right here at the church, thinking he'll have some projects going here at the church. And so, you know, the whole idea is just it's a nationwide big day of service. It's just not here locally. March, next month, our meeting will have Greg Gayton. I don't know if you've heard Greg before. He's with Green Acres, and it'll be a good time to kind of start out the year. If you have questions for gardening, gardens, or whatever it may be, he can answer your questions. We're lucky to have him coming in. He's usually so busy. And then Armando with the city will be talking about the greenbelt areas where we'll be bringing in the goats. So we'll have one presentation talking about what to plant, and then we'll talk about the goats coming in and be able to eat what they plant. So it'll be a good mix that night. So in April, we have Darnell DeMoss coming in. He's with Habitat for Humanity, and they are going to be building units over on Sayonara. So he may be asking for our help, because that's one of the things they look for is community help and service to keep the costs down. So that's what we have coming up. I appreciate.
Was Mr. Pierce going to add to the situation?
Can't hear you, Diane.
Was Mr. Pierce going to add to the situation on Old Auburn at Wintergreen?
Oh, okay. Real quick, and then after he's done, and hey, you just stay right there. Okay. And when you're done, Kat's going to stand up with her hat. You're going to reach in and pull out the raffle tape, okay?
What if I pull out my own?
Good for you. All right. Once again, thanks for coming.
That's cheating. Good job, Bill.
Okay, I'm Ron Pierce. I'm a resident of Case 7. The only reason I'm going to bring this up is I've dealt with it before, and that's 8140 and 8240 Old Auburn Road, where the cars have been brought in on the vacant, or not the vacant, the residential properties.
Yep.
Cars shouldn't be there in the first place because they're zoned residential. These two families own a used car lot in Roseville. Evidently, they don't have room to put their cars, so they bring them into their lots.
That's right.
I dealt with this several years ago and dealt with the POP officers. We cleaned it up pretty fast. Then all of a sudden, as you folks have noticed over the past almost 2.5 years, it's just become not a good sight. I spoke with code enforcement, which I have done over a period of time. They're now, as the lieutenant said, they're now in the abatement phase of it. So this is going to go before a judge to rule whether the city has jurisdiction to go in and make these folks clean it up. They are fining these folks $1,000 a week.
Oh my goodness.
But as code enforcement says, the owner at 8240 doesn't care. So that ought to help the city's case in cleaning it up. It's going to take a while yet because of all the court action. As the lieutenant said, everything moves slow. So I just wanted to bring it up that code enforcement is working on it. The city's working on it. One thing that I would like to ask is a big problem that these two properties are doing. 8140, the city is saying we can't do too much about because of the high fence that they have.
Yeah.
It blocks the vision into it. It doesn't block the vision from the bike trail into that property. so you can see what's in there. But they're unloading cars usually between 10:30 and 11:30 at night off of car carriers, which everybody knows how narrow Old Auburn is in that area.
Yep.
So just watch out for it. My recommendation, if you do see it, call law enforcement and let them know. Because this is definitely shouldn't happen. So I'm got my mission. I'm a retired firefighter. That's how I got involved in the first place years ago. And I think everybody that's lived in this area for a while knows of the circumstances of wrecked cars in the Antelope area where a fire has got in there. And it's a disaster waiting to happen, so.
Ron, about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, I called the city manager and brought this up to his attention again, you know. 'Cause you and I worked on this years
Right.
ago. And my concern is, there's no question there's blight and assignments, but I think there's a huge safety issue.
Yeah, it is.
You just brought that up. Isn't there something that we can do from that perspective
Well,
as a city?
I don't know how to phrase this. I asked the direct question to code enforcement whether they have brought fire into this. And so far they haven't, and I don't know why. Because it is a safety issue. I can't imagine as a firefighter trying to lay hose lines into either one of those properties or help a patient out that's in one of those homes. It's a great delay, and the other people I worry about is the neighbors surrounding those homes. So, but I'll try to stay up with it as a mission of mine, and every so often let the board know, let you guys know what's happening.
What's the nearest cross street to Old Auburn where this is?
Wintergreen is 8240.
Wintergreen,
And actually, from Fair Oaks Boulevard up to 8140 is not very far. You'll see they're both on the south side of Old Auburn. And 8140 has a large wooden gate in front and a wide fence all the way around the property. And there's been a car, one of their vehicles parked there that belongs to the business. And they're saying, code enforcement is saying they can't do anything about it right now, so.
So that's 8140?
8140 and 8240.
Old Auburn?
Old Auburn, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. I've got just one last quick announcement, since we're talking about code enforcement. This is maybe just an ask if you guys can help us out with this as the community. There's a number of different food vendors and food trucks that you're seeing pop up around the community. Some of those folks are licensed, some of those folks are not licensed. Our code enforcement is out right now doing an operation tonight to identify the validity of these different businesses. Everything that operates and sells in the city of Citrus Heights needs a business permit and needs to be cleared through the city. Not only for your safety for the food that they're selling, but there's a number of other conditions that they have to meet in order to be in compliance with our city codes and laws. So if you could do us a favor, I know that sometimes the temptation of a homegrown strawberry or something else on the corner is appealing, but you will see some of these folks that are gonna continue to pop up. There's a number of different other law enforcement angles. Some of these folks are not out there by choice, and they're out there because they're being forced to be there, which is really a tragedy for those workers. They have to have bathroom services available and things like that, which their handlers are not providing for them. So just be mindful of that. I'm not saying don't support street vendors if they're out there legally. You have every right to do that, but just help us kind of mitigate that a little bit for your safety, and then also just to ensure that they're acting in compliance and they're not hurting our businesses who are following the laws. So thank you very much.
How do you find out? Sorry.
You can ask them if you can see their business permit. and they have to have that.
After I was gonna answer.
Yeah, good question.
Like the fruit ones or like the taco stands?
It could be all of them, yeah. The city's looking at different projects, and I think it's maybe a little bit down the road where you've seen some communities that come out with these food truck kind of plazas.
Yeah.
They're looking at some of that, and if that happens, then it'll be in a sanctioned area, they'll all be together, and they obviously will have to abide by our rules, but we're talking about, 20 tri-tips for $40 in front of Sunrise Mall, and different things that just seem to pop up,
Yeah.
and nobody really knows who or where they came from.
That's right.
Some of them look very organized and they have trucks, others of them, it's just a cart.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, if that food's not safe for you to consume, we don't want them out there in the community potentially hurting you. So.
Two quick questions. Does code enforcement have an app like C-Click Fix?
You can enter that stuff there, so we work in conjunction
good,
with the
good,
city.
good.
When I mentioned shopping carts that are abandoned, homeless camps, the city gets all that data, but they share certain portions of that with us.
So if I
So you
totally
can put it in one spot and they'll get it to where it needs to go.
Terrific. Sunrise Mall, sometimes there's like a big fair, like carnival equipment. Do we, get revenue for that? Or do we lease that space to them? Because they're there for at least 2 weeks, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you're asking if the city receives revenue, I don't know the answer to that. Jeannie might from her past experience, but I know that Sunrise Mall is on top of everything that happens on their property.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
I'm just
they may
wondering
be
if it's a-
benefiting.
if it's an economic,
If there's sales that are happening, there could be sales tax revenue coming to the city.
Yeah, I was curious, just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pierce.
Pardon me. That's okay. Sorry.
Through ticket, last 4 digits, 8187.
Ooh.
Yay.